Good morning. Myself Ashagla Devi, Assistant Professor in Rohini College of Engineering and Technology. Today we are going to discuss about the subject CS 3391 Object Oriented Programming. In this subject, today we are going to discuss about a topic generic programming. So what is the outcome of learning this particular module is, on successful completion of this module, the student can be able to summarize the concept of generic programming. So next we are going to see the generic programming. Generic programming is a programming method that provides common code to many different type of objects. It provides the reusability of code. What are the advantage of generics are the code reusability and the type safety. So what is code reusability means? We can write a method or a class or interface once and use for the type we want. Any number of time you can use it, either a method or a class or an interface. And next is type safety. Generics makes the errors to appear at the compile time than at the runtime. So it makes easier and it makes that safe. And next we are going to discuss about the generic classes. A class, interface or a method that operates on a parameterized type is called as generic. It is called as a generic class or a generic method. It provides a common code for different type of objects. It contains one or more type of variables defined between the angle brackets and separated by commas. These variables are used to declare the fields and used to specify the return type of the methods inside the generic classes. So it accepts any kind of data types. The general form is, we have the access specifier, the class and generic class name. Within that bracket, we have to mention the type variable 1, type variable 2, etc. So this generic type means it can accept any kind of data type. And inside that class, we have to mention the field declaration and method definitions. And what is the general form of a generic instantiation? Instantiation means creating an object for the class. So how we can do this? Class within angle bracket, you have to specify the data type. So if you want to give it, as I have already told you, it accepts any data type. So which data type you are going to pass, that you have to mention within that angle bracket. So if it is an integer means inside that data type you have to mention it as int. Then object is equal to new class name of, you have to give the parameters. So if you mention it as integer means you have to pass the integer parameter. If you mention it as float means you have to pass the floating point parameters. Next is generic methods. The special type of method that can be used for different type of data. So the generic methods can be defined both inside an ordinary class and inside the generic classes. The generic methods are defined with one or more variables. The main form or the generic form of a generic method is, general form of a generic method is, first it has an access specifier, then type variable 1, type variable 2, and the return data type, method name, and we have the parameters. So normally when you are declaring a method, we just have the return data type, method and parameters. Here you have to mention the type, that is the generic data type. Then the general form of a generic method calling is, you have to mention the class name or the object name dot method name of then parameters. Or we can use the class name or object name, then you can mention the type, then method name of parameters. Okay, then the generic classes can extend or implement other generic classes also. So it is possible to develop an interfaces using generic type concepts. So what are the restrictions on generics? The restriction on generics are, it cannot be instantiate then a generic type with the primitive types, and cannot create instances of type parameters, and we cannot declare static fields whose types are type parameters. And the next thing is, we cannot use the cast or instance of with parameterized type, and we cannot create arrays of parameterized types, and we cannot create, catch or throw objects of parameterized type, and it cannot be overload a method where the formal parameter types of each overload erase to the same row type. So these are all several restrictions of generics. Thank you.